Thank you very much. It's hard to believe we just had a New Hampshire presidential primary. Look at the energy in this room. I would have thought you people would be too tired to talk about politics.
You're here.
I'm here. Thank you for that. You know, I've always said New Hampshire is in a state of perpetual political motion. And this is proof positive that that's the case indeed. And I want to say to you that those of you who know that I ran for the United States Senate the last election cycle, and you know why. I was sitting on the side during these candidate forums. You know, they bring us together, the congressional candidates, the governor's candidates, the Senate candidates, and so on. And I'd always say a little prayer. Thank you, Lord, that Jack Kimball's running for governor, not U.S. Senate. What a patriot, what a great New Hampshire leader, what a great American. Thank you, Jack Kimball. Jack didn't do something that he usually does that I'd like to be able to do on his behalf. Let's take a minute and recognize the men and women who've served this country, this great nation of ours. Will all veterans in the room please stand up and be recognized and thanked for your service. These are the men and women who are modern-day patriots for us. Because we know freedom is not free. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. But that vigilance is not just exercised by the men and women who wear the uniform. That vigilance belongs to you and me. Each and every one of us Americans has a duty and a responsibility to fight for freedom, to fight for liberty, and that's why I'm running for governor here in New Hampshire. I'm so pleased that you're here this evening, and there's so much going on, but you've taken the time to be with me. I just came from the UNH Dartmouth alumni reception before their game, and so I shedded the tie, and I apologize to anybody who's offended they don't have the tie, and I thank you for those of you who did wear a tie, but there's a lot going on in the state. And you know, I want to thank in a particular way Mike and Marmar Rogers, true patriots who are legal immigrants who want to be Americans. She's the star. Mike can come up too with us. But Marmar's the real star. Now, some of you may not know, I'm serious when I say this, some of you may not know this, but Marmar just voted for the first time as an American citizen. She's going to be voting for the first time this year, but she's an active participant in the process. So much so that she's the real media star in our state. Let me see here. The January 10th edition of the Wall Street Journal has an article about late deciders are taking their sweet time, and if you've seen this, you'll see Marmar right there. It's a beautiful picture. I'll sign this afterwards for you, but I want to thank you for being such great patriots, and welcome. And you can sign it for me. And to Sandra Ziem, who certainly hope did not commit political suicide tonight by endorsing me. I hope nobody's committing political suicide endorsing me. That may have been true in the past, but let's make this year the year that it's not, that it's political success. Sandra and Marmar actually had the same approach with me. They challenged me every time I met them. And it was a tough sell to earn their support. And I'm grateful that we're starting our campaign with your support, both of you. It really means a lot to me and Betty, and of course, I think New Hampshire's in for a real treat if they have the good fortune, New Hampshire citizens, to have Ovide Lamontagne as the First Lady of New Hampshire. call him the voice of New Hampshire, but Jeff Chidester's always there, always upbeat, always positive, whether it's the first thing in the morning or the end of the day. Where's Jeff? Thank you. Great friend. A man of compassion. And you're looking around this room, and I look around the room and I see people who are engaged in their community, engaged in their churches, engaged in making this quality of life better, but not through government. We don't need government to make life better. We need each and every one of us to make life better. We are founded on the core, fundamental, radical proposition that we are the repository of all power that government has. But government has only that power which we have delegated to it. Which is why the Constitution of these United States is a limiting document intended to protect us from government. And we the people have let our children and our grandchildren down by letting government grow and exceed the powers, exceed the limits of the Constitution. And Jack is quite right. I ran for the United States Senate because I wanted to go to Washington to try to shrink the size of the federal government, to try to put us on a path of balance, or solvency if you will, to put us back into the four corners of the Constitution, and to devolve power from Washington back to the states and the people where it belongs. Well, the people of New Hampshire sent someone else, and that's Kelly Ayotte. And I'm proud to call Kelly Ayotte my United States Senator. I think she's doing a very good job for us. But the other side of that coin, of devolving power out of Washington to the states and to the people, is making sure we elect at the state level governors who are willing to push back on the federal government, governors who understand that the states still are sovereign within this federal system of ours, governors who understand they're there to serve the people, not rule them. I'll be your servant, not your ruler. You can count on that. And we're going to push back on the federal government. We're going to tell Washington, the people of New Hampshire know best how to educate our children. Get out of the classroom, Uncle Sam. We're going to tell Washington we can teach our kids. We're going to tell Washington we can take care of the health care needs of our citizens. Thank you very much. Get out of the operating room in the hospitals of our state, Uncle Sam. We're going to tell Washington we can take care of regulating our own businesses. Thank you very much. Get out of the boardroom of our companies. Get out of the business or trying to regulate our businesses. We'll take care of the business climate here in New Hampshire. Thank you very much. We're capable of doing that, and we're going to do that. Some people say, well, how do we know you're going to do that, Ovid? Well, I ask you to look back. Some of you may not know a little bit of about my history. I've served as a business leader, I've served as a government leader, I've served as a leader in the civic and charitable community. I dare say that probably no one who's run for governor before, with the exception of Jack, can claim the kind of leadership in those three sectors. In the mid-90s, I was chairman of the State Board of Education, working with our teachers and our school leaders and parents, most importantly. Parents are the most important teachers of our children, are they not? They are. Why I fought for the rights of homeschoolers, to make it easier for families to homeschool their children. I'll continue to be an advocate. But in the mid-90s, as chairman of the State Board of Education, we were presented with another example of the federal largesse in the form of Goals 2000. That was education stimulus money in the mid-90s. And of course, at that time, most people, I think, thought, oh, if there's federal money coming around, let's take it. We've got to take the federal money. I'm here to tell you, we're not going to take the federal money just because it's offered to us. And in the mid-90s, under my leadership, our State Board of Education was the only one in the country that said no to Goals 2000. We said, stop it, government. Stop it, Washington. Stop trying to get into our classrooms. And you can imagine the outcry at that time. We were right then to push back on the federal government, and we're going to be right now asking Washington, asking our leaders to abolish the U.S. Department of Education and restore full control over education to our states and our families. first thing I would do if elected governor is to direct the Attorney General to join the other states in suing the federal government on Obamacare. I would do that not simply because of the principles of federalism which are at stake in this law, not just because going down the road of Obamacare is a road that will never return from, will never restore local control over health care, but most importantly because Obamacare is a job killer for us in New Hampshire and for our employers. And I'm here to back our employers and our families to have access to lower cost, higher quality health care. And if the Attorney General who's appointed by Governor Lynch folds his arms and says to me, I'm not doing it because I'm a constitutional officer, I will bring the suit myself. I can do that. People of New Hampshire need to know that not only are presidential candidates uniformly believe that we need to repeal Obamacare, but they'll have a governor that will fight to do that and fight to limit the federal role over health care. I practice law in health care. I know a little bit about health care. I know how to attack the system and work with our health care providers to make what was originally a locally grown and developed system work better for our families, for our individuals, and that's the direction we're going to go in. Now I want you to know a little bit about how I would govern if elected. And with your help, we will succeed, won't we?
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong conservative who finds a home in the Republican Party. And I've been a leader in our party. I've been party platform chairman. I've run for office as a Republican. But if elected governor, I submit to you that the governor's office is not a partisan office. I would be a governor for all of the people. I'd leave my party label at the door of the State House and enter the governor's office as the people's governor and be accessible to all of the people. And you deserve that, and people who aren't with us tonight deserve that. It is critically important that we take the best and the brightest. The people who may disagree with us on 9 out of 10 issues, and that one issue where they agree with us should be part of the solution. Just because, as Ronald Reagan said, you're an 80% supporter of mine, and we disagree on 20% of the issues, doesn't make you a 20% enemy. We need people to work together if we're going to make New Hampshire the best state in which to do business, the best state in which to raise a family, the best state to live in this country. And that's what I'm committed to do. I want you to know that I'm going to be a proactive governor. I'm not going to sit back and wait for the legislature to do the hard work of crafting legislation for the solutions of our state and then look at the law at that point and say, I don't really like it, but I'll let it pass without my signature, like Governor Lynch just did with his past budget. That's not leadership. That's failed leadership. And the Constitution of New Hampshire, which I've been reading, thanks in part to my good friend Howard Kaufman, who publishes the Little New Hampshire Constitutions. Howard's a true patriot, and if you want a New Hampshire Constitution, see Howard. The Constitution of New Hampshire allows the governor to take a pass. Well, I won't take a pass. I'll either sign or veto any legislation that comes to my desk, which means I'll be proactive with the legislative leaders. I hope they'll be largely, as they are now, people we can work on most issues, and they won't need to worry about having a supermajority, by the way, to pass right to work. I'll be an advocate and I'll sign right to work. I will be engaged with the legislative leaders to kind of craft the legislation we can have majority support on that I can support. And I'll also let the legislative leaders know where I disagree. And there will be areas of disagreement. And we'll have our, positive civil discussion and debate, and then we'll move forward. But I think the people of New Hampshire expect that when a law is passed and the governor, who's supposed to be the chief executive officer, has weighed in on that law and not passed it over or left it to one branch of government. Lastly, I would say this state can be and needs to be a beacon on the hill, not only in the Northeast, but around this country, about what it means to live free and die, or die, I should say. We're all going to die, but our choice is living free, and we're committed to living free. You know, people look at New Hampshire, they've looked at us in the last presidential cycle, and they wonder what happens here. What happens is civic engagement. What happens is people taking ownership. What's happening now in New Hampshire and across America, but probably more so in New Hampshire, is we're saying to each other, let's rely less on government and more on ourselves. Let's expect less from government out of Washington. Because we know 50 years ago, the President of the United States in his inaugural address defined what it was about America that was exceptional. And he said the American experiment, the American experience is still offensive to a large part of the world because we believe that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. The rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. And that president went on to exhort the people, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That president was John F. Kennedy, a Democrat who understood what it meant to be an American, who understood what it meant to be self-reliant, who understood what it meant to be successful. And what has happened to us in 50 years? We've lost faith in ourselves. We've lost faith in this country. We've lost faith in each other. It's time to renew the American spirit. It's time to renew our commitment to what makes us the greatest nation known to man in all of history. It's time to renew the New Hampshire advantage as part of saving America. We have to be part of the solution here in New Hampshire if we want to save this country. By the way, I look forward to working with Jim Luther. Not only because he's a man of great principle, because he's motivated, animated by his faith, and people of faith belong in the public square, don't they? Yeah. They ought to be affirmed because we are a nation of faith. Thank you for that prayer. I want to leave you with these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Right. We consent to limited government. We believe the government that governs least governs best, and we believe in New Hampshire as a state within the federal government as being part of the solution of saving our country. God bless you, God bless America, God bless the great state of America.
GrokTV.